Shalom. I am Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I'm going to speak about this week's Torah portion of Vayechi and talk about how from this Torah portion we learn of Yaakov Avinu, our father Jacob's revelation to the children of Israel of the ultimate redemption and what was needed to reach that point. Now, a number of commentators, including Rashi, says that Yaakov really wanted to reveal what was needed for the end of times, to bring about the Mashiach quicker, but he was unable to do so. And we will talk about in this particular short Devar Torah how in fact he did reveal what was needed for the end of time. Before I do that, I want to look at a comment from the Mashiach, the Ishbitzer. And the Ishbitzer says something very interesting. He says that in the end of this week's Parsha, it says, V'yatem hashavtem alai ra, Elokim hashaft b'tov. Even though Yosef is addressing his brothers, said, even though you wanted to do evil to me, God wanted to do good for me. And he said that the Ishbitzer says, B'zeho inyan, hara Hashem yisborach. And from this thing we can see how it was possible, how it happened that the tribes of Israel went down to this slavery in Egypt. And he says the main reason was the pirud, the separation, the disunity of the people, of the tribes, that caused them to be subjected to exile in Egypt and the horrible slavery that followed. Now, going back to the beginning of this Parsha, not exactly the beginning, but shortly after the beginning, it says, Vayikra Yaakov el banav. Yaakov is realizing that his time on this world is coming to an end. So he calls to his children, Vayomer, and he says, Hey, asfu v'agidu lachem asher yikra eschem b'achrit hayomim. Gather together, come together, so that I can tell you what is to befall you in days to come. And then it says, Hikavtsu v'shimu, get together, come together, assemble, and listen to Yaakov, to Jacob, listen to Israel, your father. And then he proceeds to the blessings. And looking at the superficial reading of the Parsha, it doesn't look like he's telling them what they need to do to bring about the end of days. And the Meforshim, including the Netivot Shalom, say that in fact we can learn from these words that I just read that Jacob in fact did tell the Jewish people, tell his sons what is necessary to bring about the ultimate redemption. The Gemara tells us that the ultimate redemption, Mashiach, will come either when we are worth it, when we are worthy of it, or at the appointed time, regardless whether we're worthy of it or not. And Yaakov was telling them the steps that needed to be taken if we were not worthy of it. And the steps that he said needs to be taken are in the very words that he stated. He said, Hey ashu v'agida lachem. You should gather together and be as one. Unity among the Jewish people will bring the ultimate redemption. Here in Israel, we are going through horrible times in terms of the brutal war that was thrust upon us by Hamas. But one thing that this war has done is that it has brought about great unity. Before the events of October 7th, Israel was split. People were fighting with one another. Now, people are united. We can illustrate the importance of the concept of unity by an interesting story. It says, in the time of Napoleon, Napoleon was walking around and he was in the midst of his war with Russia, and he came across a very righteous Jew, and he asked him, he said, maybe you can tell me, with what strength does the country of Russia have that they can keep winning these battles? How is it that they're able to defeat and be stronger than me? Because Napoleon was looking at things from the way a person would look at it, and he was looking for the source, the secret of their power. So this wise man said to him, I'll tell you a story, a parable. There once was a very rich man who was traveling with his chariot in the middle of winter. A beautiful chariot. And he had 4 superb horses, very strong horses. And unfortunately, since it was the winter, the wagon got stuck in the mud. And no matter how hard he tried, the rich man could not get this wagon to move from the mud, could not get his horses to move from the mud. Suddenly, a simple wagon drawn by 2 weak horses came by. And the wagon master asked the rich man, he says, if you'd like, I will try to pull your wagon out of the mud. The rich man laughed at him. He says, how could you pull out this wagon from the mud with those 2 weak horses that you have? I have the strongest horses. They weren't able to do it. But the simple wagon driver persisted. And the rich man said, okay, what do I have to lose? Try it. So he hooked up his 2 horses to the wagon, and with one movement, those 2 weak horses pulled the wagon out of the mud. And the rich man was amazed. How could you do this? What's the strength of these? And the wagon master told him, it is true that my horses are weak, but they are together in knowing what they have to do. And they have this great power to do wonders because of togetherness. And he said the same thing with Napoleon. He told the same thing to Napoleon. He says, you have a great army, and all kinds of weapons, and all kinds of countries that are joining you, but everybody is fighting their own personal battle. They're not together. But the Russian people, even though they're simple people, they're together. And that's the secret of unity. The Netivot Shalom says a beautiful thing. We know it says in Psalms, Hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How beautiful is it for brothers to dwell together. Shekol Yehudi b'fnei atzmo, he says, every Jew by himself, hu ner yechidi, is a single light. As it says, Ner Hashem nishmas adam, the candle of God is the soul of man. But if they gather together as one, bi'ahava, ba'achvos, with love, with unity, then they become a ravuka, a great torch. And this great torch will overcome any darkness and any evil that persists in the world. That is the message that Yaakov Avinu was giving to the Jewish people. Achdut, unity, will overcome anything and bring the ultimate redemption. The ultimate redemption, the final redemption, when we will no longer see wars. We will no longer see the horrible things that we're seeing right now. I thank you for listening on behalf of the Web Yeshiva, and I bless us all to work to our very best to bring about unity with the Jewish people and with the world. Shabbat Shalom.